work, one whole day to play. Come on, everybody, wear your roller skates today. It's Saturday, 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 it's Saturday, Saturday, it's Saturday, Saturday, it's Saturday, yeah.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Career Exploration Saturday. I'm your host, Ebony Tyler. I have real conversations with real people about real jobs. So this week, my guest is Margarita Marasigan. Margarita is so much more than a nurse. She shares how a girl from Queens, born to immigrant parents, got to the University of Pennsylvania. We taped this at the end of August, and I wish we talked more about how she's taking care of her school and keeping her little ones safe during this pandemic. All right, let's jump right into my conversation with Margarita Marasigan. So, good evening and welcome, Margarita. Welcome, Margarita. Welcome to Career Exploration Saturday. I am so glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, folks, this is my friend. This is one of my mom friends. Margarita has helped me out through a lot of challenges. So I'm so excited she's here. So my level of excitement is a little hyped today. So, Margarita, you know how I like to start. Tell us about who 16-year-old Margarita was. Did you have it all together? Do you know exactly what you wanted to be?
I was a little bit of a nerd, straight A student, perfectionist, had been going to Catholic school all my life. So that was, a daughter of immigrants. So was raised in a very, very strict household. And I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I wasn't athletic. I wasn't artistic. My thing was my intelligence. So I really poured everything I had into that. I worked hard, even though things came, sometimes I felt like they came easy to me. I still put in the extra effort because I wanted to go that extra mile because that was my thing. And I thought I wanted to be a doctor. That it was okay, this, I'm pretty smart. I get all these things. I could be a doctor. And then I had a very close uncle of mine become sick with leukemia. And during his treatment and recovery, he definitely expressed a lot of appreciation for his doctors and what they were doing for him. But he seemed to be most affected by the care that was given to him by his nurses. And I started to explore the field of nursing and found it much more aligned to my personal values of holistically taking care of a person, of being interested in who the whole person is and not just focused in on illness, which seems to be, the way Western medicine is designed. And as a teenager, a little rebellious daughter of immigrants, I found this really hard to reconcile with myself because I felt like this calling that I was having to become a nurse was pretty much cliche. I mean, who doesn't know a Filipino nurse? There are Filipino nurses everywhere. And so I didn't want to become a cliche. I didn't want to be oh, that's just, when you hear comedians talking about this, you hear people saying oh yes, her parents pushed her into going to nursing. My parents were not pushing me to become a nurse. My mom is an accountant and my dad's an engineer. And it wasn't we have nurses in the family for sure. We have doctors in the family, but we have many different professions in the family. So that it wasn't this is what you had to do. But I just felt myself being pulled that way. And in my head, I couldn't fit the two together.
Okay.
It was hard for me to say, this is what I want to do, because it was well, of course you're going to nursing school.
Well, that was one of my questions, right? One of my questions was, my doctor, when I was born, she was Filipino. My mom's gynecologist was her husband, was the husband, and they were Filipino.
Right.
So the question that I had was, do the Filipino elders get together and make a decision as to what profession you're going to go into? Because you guys got it on lock.
there is definitely, there's definitely pressure to do well, and there's definitely pressure, I mean, pressure surrounding what's acceptable professions, you know, like I mean, my mom like definitely wanted us to be secure. So, when my sister told her that she wanted to be an artist, my mom's response was, well, that's nice for a hobby, but let's try to figure out something else.
Right.
So when she heard me talking about being a nurse, it wasn't like she had put the idea in my head, but she was like 100% behind it,
Okay. Okay.
because she knew it would provide security. It was a noble profession. It was, it was something. And there's definitely, um, and there's just that history, there's a history, but it's funny because my mom's generation sees it as like something admirable to go towards. Like, she wanted to be a nurse, and I didn't know that. Like, she wanted to be a nurse, but my grandparents could only afford to send one of their 5 kids to nursing school. So my mom's eldest sister got to go, and she had to go, and then my mom had to go to business school. Like, that was just decided because they couldn't afford for both of them to go to nursing school. So I found that very interesting, and I think that helped also my mom, like, just encourage me to do what I wanted to do. And then there's just also this, like, it's nice in a way, but there's this like stereotype of Filipinos like taking really good care of people and working very hard. And that sounds nice, but it's kind of like that model minority myth, like, okay, like, this is like where your place is. And like, I always found that difficult to be okay with, because we were colonized for so long. We were colonized by Spain, and then we were colonized by the US. And it was when the US colonized the Philippines that influx of nurses started to come in, because they would promise them citizenship and jobs. And then that was money going back home. And it became this, like, there are like overseas workers all that come back and forth. It's like one of our greatest exports in the Philippines are the nurses or the
Wow.
workers. So
That's interesting. I've never heard that.
yeah, I
Wow.
mean, in every and in any like industry that you can think of that is like a service industry, like in hospitality, and not just doctors, nurses, nursing assistants, radiologists,
Yeah.
respiratory therapists. Who is not Filipino? It's like there's like the hospitals are filled with them, and it just so that was like something I kind of had to struggle with for a little bit. So what did I do then? I decided I would go to the best nursing school, and I applied to Ivy League nursing schools and got in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that was another thing that I had on my notes is that, looking at your resume,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like you are one of the few people that I know who actually got a degree in something, got a degree in something in a specific area,
Mm-hmm.
and is actually working in that area. So you have a bachelor's degree in nursing,
Right.
University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Fancy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, on scholarship, because there's no way that my parents would have been able to afford that. But yeah, but I did. And that was like an academic scholarship. It was all of the things that I was working towards. It really did pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know that I could do that now. Like, if I think about like our kids applying for college, I honestly don't know that I would get in under the same, you know, requirements that they're under and the same pressures that they're under.
Yeah,
But,
they're
you
under a
know,
lot.
but at the time um, it was pretty huge. It was huge for my family. I was the first one in my family to go to college here in the United States. So, and to an Ivy League. So that was like huge. It was big.
Ivy League and a nurse. Check.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like inside, I'm like, oh, I'm selling out. I'm selling out.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your nursing.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my little questions here, but
Yeah.
you mentioned holistic care,
Yeah.
and I always say that you are so much more than the school nurse.
Oh,
You
thanks.
are the social worker. You know, you are so in tune with these babies, with their spirit
Mm,
and all that's going on with them. So the fact that you said that you take a holistic approach,
mm-hmm,
how do you know that it's this kid is really sick or this
mm.
is just their emotions? Because you're so tapped into that.
Yeah. I think, all my life I've been pretty empathetic, even as like a little kid. And I think my sensitivity as a child, my mom kind of helped to develop that. She would talk about thinking of others. Like she would always have me in that mindset of thinking of like what this other person is feeling. I grew up in a very Catholic household, so it's also like it's part of the religion, it's part of the culture, and everything is so tied in together when you're talking about a Filipino Catholic. And I think that. Um, when I was growing up, I wasn't always the popular person. I was kind of, I was actually a very anxious kid, you know, afraid to like speak up for myself, teased because I was not like others. And I think a lot of those things, I can still very viscerally feel those things and I recognize it in others. And so that helps me to just see someone for who they are and what they're feeling. And I think that working as a nurse, and in the populations that I worked in, I like it's just been a skill that I've been able to develop really well. I went into nursing because I wanted to be an oncology nurse, in tribute to my uncle, and I did. I started off that way, but before I even passed my boards, I was working as a nursing assistant for HIV/AIDS patients in Philadelphia, and in the 90s, that was those patients were shunned a lot. They were not understood. And, I was not afraid to be there with them, to help bathe them, to do the little things that they needed to do when they were at their sickest. And um, it was, some of my patients were really just touched to be seen, and to be seen as a person in a very vulnerable moment. And when I was working in oncology, it was the same thing. All age ranges from pediatric to the elderly, suffering from cancer, and seeing what that did to the family unit, what it did to people who live alone. It was very humbling to be with these people in those moments of like real vulnerability. And I never wanted to take that for granted, that I was, you know, given access to these like real life moments, and it made me value a lot about my life. It made me value, the health that I've had and that I've enjoyed. And so I think it's just like those things, and then when I kind of got burned out in oncology, um, I switched over to mother baby, to
Mm-hmm.
postpartum care, to the newborns. And that was a whole other like, oh my God, I'm like part of this new life, this new family, this new mom and her baby's relationship. And that was another like special, like, stepping stone. And I kind of feel like I went a little bit in reverse. I started off with death and dying and then moved into like birth and life and growth. And so that whole pathway of going from mother baby, newborn nursery, and now into school nursing, it's just um, it, it's I feel like not only am I getting to do what I really love, but I am really lucky to be part of these kids' lives, and I'm lucky that they allow me in, that they allow me to be part of their lives and they trust me. Like I really value that. And I think they know that. I think they can see that comes from a genuine place. And so I like to think that that helps them trust me a little bit, to open up and to, come to me if they need something, or even if they don't want to talk or anything, they just know that they have a safe space in my office.
Yes, and we know that my son has had many safe spaces in your office.
Yeah, true.
So tell us a little bit about, maternity nursing.
Mm-hmm.
I had my kids are 16 months apart, and I
Mm-hmm.
had my first son with a doctor, and I had my
Mm-hmm.
second son with a nurse midwife, and it
Yeah.
was a totally different experience,
Yeah.
even though there was like a little complication.
Mm-hmm.
um, they just stay with you the whole time, and they're
Yeah.
so I've just found her to be very in tune
Mm-hmm.
with me,
Yeah.
and like kind of there for the
Yeah.
process, not to show up for the grand finale. The grand
Right. Right.
finale.
Right. Right.
So
I you know,
what is that like? Being with, especially like new moms, being in the room
mm-hmm.
with them, and they're so anxious.
Yeah. I can relate, because I was a new mom at one point, and even when I had my second, my first was only 21 months old, just a baby too, and I can relate to that anxiety, and there is like always whenever you're working any job, right? There's like that moment where you're like, oh my God, this person is so annoying, right? But then if you stop and you put yourself in their shoes and like think about what is that, like what is going on that they're being so persistent, or that they need so many things from you. Like, it usually comes down to fear. It comes down to fear because they don't know what they're doing, or they're unsure of their safety or their baby's safety. And so I really try to reframe my mindset to think of like, not my needs, because it's not about me at that point. It's really about what this patient needs or what this baby needs at that time. And that really held me for a long time. I was at Sinai full time for full time, part time for about 14 years before I left to go to the schools. So, it was a long time that I was there, and it was rewarding
Mm-hmm.
to me until it became very managed, until like management came in and was like giving me scripts of things to say, like how to introduce myself and how to relate to it. And I get that their overall goal was to help patient nurse relationship get better, but I felt like I kind of had that down, like I don't have problems getting to know people, or um, you know being able to find out what they need.
So you've worked in hospitals, schools, homes. You've been
Mm-hmm.
an educator, doctor's office, health fairs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you like best? And then also, two-part question: what do you like best? And then, I mean, you were on a Bravo show, Pregnant in Heels,
Just for one episode.
but you work with them. You work with them.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I did. So Rosie Pope has a maternity line, and she was doing like childbirth classes, and I kind of just blind called them and said, "Hey, I'd like to be your childbirth educator. I'd like to teach your breastfeeding classes."
Mhm.
And they were like, "What? We're not looking for anyone." I'm like, "Okay, but anyway, here's my resume. Here's my stuff. Like, look it over." And then I had a meeting, and things seemed to work out. They really liked me, and so I came on and started teaching for her. And she started having this reality show called Pregnant in Heels, and they wanted to record like portions of one of my classes. So I was in one episode.
So you
So that
went.
was fun.
So you went and got you a part-time gig. Like you went out and got that. Like you
Oh yeah,
consciously created
I
it.
wasn't looking for it. I mean, it wasn't like there was an ad or something. It was like I want to do this. Like this was in the midst of me working in maternity, and working with the new moms, and thinking, what else could I do? Because I seem to be pretty good at this. And so that's what I did. I like made up my own newborn class and told Sinai, like, I'm going to teach my class, but I'm going to teach it my way if you want to hire me. And they said yes.
I mean, sometimes you got to do that, right? When you
Yeah.
know that you're good at something and you
Yeah.
want to share it, you kind of gotta like present the plan.
Right. Right.
So where do you like working more? Hospitals, schools,
Yeah.
homes?
Honestly, the thing that I like the most, and this is what I love the most about nursing, is that it has provided me so much flexibility,
Mm,
so much like opportunity to um, do things that I'm interested in. And then when I change or grow, to then find a different way. And it's still all within my same profession. Like I don't really have to leave my profession to be able to um, discover a different kind of care. And that is what I love the most. It's just the flexibility, the variety. I I guess I don't really like to sit still much. So like I'm always looking. I have my main job and then I always have my side hustle. But that's I don't know what I would do if I couldn't have the choice to do different things. And that's what I love. I love the choice.
choice. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you also seem like you really, really love your job
Oh, I do. I love it. I
and your
mean,
profession.
yes, I love it. I mean, I love the science behind it. I love, like, I've always been somebody who watched like medical mystery, like things from medical mysteries to like Dr. Pimple Popper. I watched all of that, because I like to see that. I like to see the gross things, and I like just knowing the science behind it. I love like finding the connections between how the body and the mind work together and how it affects like your overall being. I love like delving into these things that are associated with public health. I mean, I find that school nursing that's what it is. It's public health. It's keeping communities safe and healthy. And what better time to do that than in a pandemic, right? So,
True, true.
right. So
So
yeah,
a lot of these stomach aches are not really stomach aches, right?
they are stomach aches. They are stomach aches, but they are not caused by a physical like it's not because they have IBS, which a lot of them come to. I think I have IBS, or because they are like allergic to gluten. It's not those things. It's because they have some worry or some anxiety, and it's become so much that their bodies just don't know what to do with that extra cortisol, and then it affects them physically. They start to feel the physical effects of their emotions. And it's funny because through the years, like trying to give kids this language, they'll walk into my office and they'll say their head hurts or their stomach hurts. I'm like, but I drank my water, I gave it 10 minutes, I promise I don't have a test today. They're like going down the list. But then like as we're talking, they're like, well, I kind of did fight with someone during recess. And so legitimately, and sometimes they didn't sleep. And so this lack of sleep, but the lack of sleep was caused because of the argument. It's a very cyclical thing. And so it is really nice to help those kids make connections um, about their bodies and how they can, all the proactive things they can do to help them be healthy.
Now, if a young person is interested in going into nursing,
Mm-hmm.
what advice do you have for them?
I would say you would need to be okay with working hard, because it's hard work to be a nurse, and to be a nurse who works bedside, and is not just an administrator and who is actually doing work. It's hard work. So you can't be afraid of effort and work and being bone tired. Um, but that being said, I think that like if you are interested in science and you're interested in the body and you're interested in how these things work, I think that nursing is a great career because it affords you a lot of choice.
Mm-hmm.
In You might think that you want to do one thing and then find halfway through nursing school that that's totally not your thing, and go into another specialty. And you can also advance in nursing, to get your master's degree, to get your doctorate, and to become very specialized in something that you're very passionate about. And again, that's choice. That's like, you know people who get their advanced degrees to become experts in their fields. It's really amazing to see like the growth that can happen and the many varied ways that my classmates in nursing school have gone.
So it's the field is wide open.
So wide, so wide.
I
Yeah.
mean, and we need more nurses.
Yes, I mean there is. If you think about it, like if you think of the picture of nursing, there have been so many younger nurses who graduate nursing school with the goal of getting their advanced degrees. So and then at the same time, there is a generation just above me that is getting ready to retire. So there is there is going to be a shortage of people who are just working at the bedside. Well, not just, but people who are working at the bedside, and people who are, you know, contributing to the everyday life of a doctor's office, of a school, of a hospital. You know, these people that are, you know, are now being seen as essential workers. There's going to be a shortage of that.
So that tells me that the parent council needs to get together and tell the kids that you need to be a nurse. You need to go to nursing school.
But that's the worst thing you could do. That's taking away their choice.
It is taking away their choice, but sometimes we need to do what's best for our community, right? And
I mean, I think that there has to be an interest there at first, because if the interest isn't there in science and medicine, it's going to be hard. Like you will not survive nursing school.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. That's the thing. It's like it's really hard work, and I don't mean to say that to scare people away, but only to just emphasize that when somebody is a nurse, they are not just a nurse. You
right.
know, there's a lot of work that went behind getting that title and being able to do what they do.
Yeah, the best care I've had is at the hand of nurses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how has your job changed in the Rona?
Well, I never thought I would do like a lot of as much virtual stuff as I have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in relation to the school, I've been in more of like a consultation mode, you
Okay.
know, as we talk about like safest ways to open and how do we keep our community as safe as possible. So that's what's changed during this time, is that there is less like um, one-on-one care or face-to-face care, and more advising and reassuring
Okay.
um, to get things underway. And then at the doctor's office that I work at, it's just been availability, you know, because we've cycled through people that have been sick or people that have left, or, you know, for whatever reason. Um, like you said, there's a need and there's a shortage. So I've, you know, been able to pick up, to both of our benefits, the office benefit and my benefit, I've been able to pick up hours because they have a need for nurses to be there.
So, final question.
Mhm.
Do you have anything that you want to plug, a project, something dear to your heart about your industry, or just something that you want us to know?
Well, okay, so there's two things, two last thoughts that I have. First, you know, that thought that I had as a teenager, that I didn't want to become a cliche, you know, that I didn't want to just become like the stereotypical Filipino. What I have learned now, going through all of this, all of my studies and all of my work experiences, is that there is a legacy of care that Filipinos embody, and it's not it, though it can seem like a cliche, it's actually something that I'm quite proud to become a part of. So that was my reconciliation with my teenage self. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, I don't have like a dedicated project per se that I'm working on at the moment. As a nurse, as a school nurse, my project is doing what I can to minimize risk as much as possible, so that, you know, for our entire community, right? So that our community stays safe, the numbers stay low as it has been here in New York. And it's just doing what is necessary to help educate folks on like best practices. So to get a hold, so that we get a hold of this pandemic and get it under control. You know, it's affected so many in our city, in our nation, myself included, my family included, and staying current on the latest research, the latest science, the latest data to help build our best practices on. So, it's wear a mask, wash your hands, physically distance, but stay socially connected. And I recently shared, I think this morning, I borrowed this from Dr. Emily King, who is a child and adolescent psychologist. My goals, my 2020 goals for the school year are safety, connection, mental wellness, physical health, and to maintain relationships.
You know what, Margarita? Thank you so much. And we are going to leave it right there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Margarita. So, as some takeaways are, it is a stomach ache, but it's stress. And even our littlest humans are affected by stress. And Margarita is giving our kids some tools to self-check. 2, lived experiences can affect your decision as to what career to choose. And we should really lean into that. It will make us so much more whole in our professions. And 3, take your shot. You have the skills. Reach out to the organization and tell them what you bring to the table and create your next gig. Thank you so much, Margarita. Thank you for keeping our school community safe. We appreciate you. Thank you to everyone who came out to Financing Your Higher Education. If you missed it, guess what? I taped it and it is on our Patreon channel. So you got to subscribe to get that content. This Monday, we have another live webinar on how to write an effective college essay. Now, this webinar is going to be facilitated by a college admissions representative, so you know it's the real deal. The link for the webinar is in my bio. All right, I'm not going to hold you much longer, but if you like this video, show us some love with a donation. All of Liberated Success programming is supported by donations from our community. Link is in the bio. It's a first comment on Facebook. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. So I taped this, and Biden and Harris are all the way up. As I'm taping this, they're all the way up. So can we just shout out Stacey Abrams and just give a pause for that HBCU excellence? I'll wait. Yeah. We fitting to have a whole HBCU grad in the White House. And I mean, Stacey's got to come somewhere in there. All right. Anyway, this is what saving ourselves look like, right? Mobilization and taking care of ourselves. And that's what we do here at Liberated Success. So, folks, wear your mask, wash your hands, physically distance, all Black Lives Matter, and all votes matter. Shout out to Philly, Atlanta, and Detroit. See you next week.
One whole day to play.